Welcome to the inner world of filmmaking. I'm your host, Tammy McGarrow. I'm a writer, director, editor, and a podcast producer. In this show, I will interview filmmakers in all facets of production and distribution. I'm so excited to have Alberto Mendoza on the show today. He specializes in creating content which aligns to personal and business branding and has shot videos all over the world. Welcome, Alberto. So happy to have you on the show today.
Hey, Tammy, thanks for having me on the podcast. This is really exciting stuff. And congratulations. You've been going for a while now.
Yeah. It's been really a great ride. So thank you. Thanks for noticing.
Yeah. How do you like it so far?
I'm loving it because I get to talk to wonderful people like yourself, and really every show is a learning for me.
That's awesome.
I really love how companies are now taking on the storytelling approach to their videos as a way of connecting with their customers. What got you into this kind of commercial work?
Okay, so I could just go from the very beginning. It's pretty fast and simple. I saw a GoPro commercial. It was a GoPro Hero 3 specifically, and I saw that commercial and I was just in awe. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to learn how to do that. So my brother and I went 50-50 on a GoPro Hero White, which was like $300. To us, that was like $1 million. So we got that camera, and with that, I was more into the camera than he was. So it kind of became my camera, and I was just filming them skimboarding, snowboarding, surfing, and I was just super into the whole editing process. Back then, I was using GoPro Studio's editing software, and I don't know anything about computers. I don't know anything about editing, and I went super into it. I remember not wanting to be around family functions just to edit and learn YouTube tutorials. And that's pretty much how it began. Eventually, I figured out that cameras can only do so much, especially the cheaper end cameras. So I eventually got myself a Sony A6300 camera, which at the time was like $1,000, a little over $1,000 with the kit lens. And so I was working full time, so I saved up enough money to get that camera. And again, $1,000 was a lot to me. I mean, it still is a lot, but for a 22-year-old, I'm like, I'm really gonna do this.
Yeah.
And watching so many YouTube tutorials and videos, I knew I wanted to go the Sony route just because of the video features it had. I didn't really care too much about photography, and the whole debate is Canon or Sony. But I wanted the video features, and at the time, Canon didn't really have those 4K quality features and picture profiles and whatnot. Got into that. I was working at the hospital for 6 years, and I was sick of that lifestyle. And so eventually just pulled the trigger and quit my job. And I traveled 6 months through Central and South America with my camera, documenting my own travel films, I guess, if you want to call it. And also offering my services to really like nice hotels and resorts for free accommodations, and that extended my traveling, and I was able to stay at some of the most amazing places that even till today I don't even know if I could afford. So just, hey, I'm going to be at this country around this area of town. If you're interested in some video content. Oh, and by the way, I have a drone too, and they just hear drone and they're just like, we want this stuff. And so it was just a numbers game. Most of the time I wouldn't hear back, but if you shoot enough numbers out there, I just needed just one yes. Eventually it was to the point where I was turning down gigs because I didn't have enough time, or I was just too busy with all the editing. But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
And are you on Adobe Premiere?
Yes, I edit everything in Adobe Premiere. Initially, I wanted to get the Final Cut because of the $300 just straight out payment. I didn't want to do the monthly subscription, but I don't have Apple. I use PC. My buddy who knows all about computers, he built on my computer. He knew exactly what I needed for video editing. PC was the way to go for me because you could just do a lot more with $1 compared to Apple. So I went with Adobe, and I've been using it ever since. It's a love-hate relationship, like most people. Right now, I'm teetering into thinking about getting into DaVinci Resolve, but I haven't fully committed to that yet.
Yeah, I love DaVinci Resolve too, and I've gotten into Adobe Premiere. So yeah, each system has its own pros and cons for sure.
The one thing that's like stopping me from wanting to get DaVinci, and I don't know if this is the right mindset to have, is just I don't want to take the time to learn a brand new software, where with Premiere I'm pretty efficient, I'm really fast, and I'm good at what I do. And so I really want to take the time to learn another software. But again, I don't know if this is the right approach. mindset to have. But maybe down in the future, I will just commit to it and just learn what's up with DaVinci, what's all the fuss about, because everyone's raving about that software. So I want to try it out.
Yeah, the color correction is amazing. So I think that's the big hype there. But it is funny. It's like I was a DaVinci Resolve editor, and then all the projects that I was getting were Adobe Premiere. So I had to jump on. So maybe that's it. It's just like there may be a project down the line where it's like, no, we only want this on DaVinci. And then you're like, okay, well, now I got to learn it.
Right.
But great networking that you're doing. And I think this is good for the audience to remind themselves that it's network. And it's also putting yourself out there. And the more that you put yourself out there, you're going to get the yes. And it's really just about, like you said, the first yes.
Yeah.
That's all you need is one yes. And then the ball starts to roll. That's really amazing that you did that. I know a lot of people have fears of asking, but it's so easy the more you do it. It's just like, what? The worst they could say is no.
Exactly.
Or not answer.
Exactly. Which you're back to square one. So who cares?
Right. Yeah. So you've worked on a variety of different projects with different clients. You've done fitness, weddings, investment tips, beauty, real estate, and travel. How do you approach your clients first? I mean, do you have a questionnaire to fill out, or do you set up an informational meeting?
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious, how do you figure out their story or the story that could be told?
Yeah. So the way I have it, how I have my system and processes is, I had to create a business Instagram account to separate my personal passions of like travel content. And then I'm like, I know when I come back home to the States, I know I don't want to work in the hospital. So I want to somehow make a living with video creation. And so I applied, I remember, to a few jobs on Indeed, I believe. And this local real estate company reached out and they're like, hey, we love your work. And again, this is literally just based on my YouTube videos, which is just travel stuff. No story narratives, no audio, no lighting. It's just run and gun style, typical YouTube stuff that you could see online right now. And he's like, hey, we want to take a chance with you and work with us. So I'm like, sweet. I got a freaking job, full-time job. And I'm going to learn, I'm going to network and work with a bunch of real estate professionals. And so I did that. I was there for about a year or two, I think. And then the pandemic happens. I created a business Instagram and I had all my information. I was putting all my work from my previous job to there. And so people were noticing the quality of work and they would just reach out to me via DM or emails. And at first I would respond through DMs, which was not the way to go. But eventually through some of the mentors that I've been following, I would then send a questionnaire, because a lot of the people that I would send DMs to or respond to their DM inquiry, they wouldn't just respond or take it serious. So I needed to somehow trim the quote unquote fat by sending a questionnaire. It's only 5 questions. And if you take the time to answer those questions, then I know you're serious about what you want to do or what you want to create. I will go full force on that. And then from there, I set up a Zoom call, which, Tammy, in the very beginning, I would never speak on the phone. This would never happen 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because I just didn't like to do it. And now I love being in front of the camera. I love speaking to clients and prospects or anybody. And my number one thing is now is like, hey, let's get you on a Zoom call, because I need them to see my face and feel my energy.
Right.
And when they hear me speak about their project, their ideas, my ideas start flowing. I start blurting out ideas. And they sense that passion in me. Like it's like, hey, you're not just here to make a buck. Like you actually care. And I really do care. It's cool that I get to make money, but I feel like I'm cheating life by making a crazy living just by freaking making videos. It's insane to me. Like today, it's still, I've been freelancing for 2 years now, and it's still a trip for me that I could control my life the way I wanted to just by holding a freaking camera. Like who would have thought that could happen?
Well, congratulations. I mean, I've known you for a couple years, and it's just so cool to see all your posts and all the things that you're doing. I mean, it's amazing.
Thank you.
What's your website for people?
It's albertovisuals.com. Pretty simple, pretty easy. But yeah, it's been an amazing trip so far. I'm loving every day. All I do right now is just consume a ton of business knowledge, whether it's through podcasts, through books, through some of the mentors that I work with. They definitely help me out a lot and guide me to the right direction that I want to go to. But it's been a blast so far. At first, when I first got my camera, I'm like, well, do I really want to be a traditional filmmaker? I thought that was the only avenue to do. You have to go to Hollywood and make these movies. But I did work on sets, like movie sets with like a bunch of like local colleagues. It was a great experience. When I first started, I just needed to get my feet wet and figure out what I wanted to do. So I was shooting everything, you name it, everything. And then my friends would take me to their movie sets, and I would work as a PA for the most part. I just personally didn't really love that. And I figured out real quickly that that is not for me. I like the more videographer route rather than the cinematographer route, where I could work one-on-one with the actual person or some sort of brand again to create whatever they want to create, rather than filming something with such a high production with 20 different people running around. To me, that felt like a job. And I got into the space because I didn't want to work again.
I love it. I love it. So let's deep dive into these projects and get an inner look at them. How do you approach your projects? And we're going to start with wedding videos.
Okay.
Is there different packages you give with weddings, like an engagement video at the wedding itself? Do you have a team that you bring? And what gear do you use when working with these clients?
Of course. So for weddings specifically, I do have 3 packages. But for the most part, it's always going to be a highlight film, no more than like 8 minutes. I'm actually trimming it down more and more by the day. So right now, my sweet spot is like 2 to 4 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes of highlight films. I'm not doing the whole doc style where it's like a 60-minute ceremony, for example. Like, that's not my style. I like to shoot what I like, and I keep it that way. So for the most part, the couples know what they're getting into. They see my portfolio, they see my work, and if they like it, then again, I do the questionnaire, do the Zoom meetings, and then I try to lock it down right there. And as far as the actual shoot itself, I eventually upgraded my camera to the A7S III. So I use all Sony systems, A7 III, A7S III, and then my B shooter shoots with he's currently filming with the A7 III as well, full frame cameras, a variety of lenses. We don't really take lights because I don't think it's necessary. For audio stuff, I use the Zoom H6 recorder, and I also have lavalier systems with the Rode Wireless Go's for backup purposes. And that's pretty much it. Couple of gimbals, tripods, you name it, and that's pretty much it. Nothing too crazy. I currently just hired a dedicated wedding editor, and we're currently working on our 3rd wedding right now. And it's been a pretty cool process as far as him and I working together and trying to get him to kind of edit towards my style, where he does the timeline for the most part, goes through all the selects, because to me, editing a wedding film is kind of torturous. Right. I don't know if I should be saying this out loud, but it is. I'm going to keep it real. But what he does, which is awesome, is he puts it on the timeline, and then from there, I do all the final touches. I change the things that I like for my style, which is great. And I get to color it too, because I enjoy color grading. And I finalize everything, and it's been working out so far. He's based out of New York as well, so it's been a game changer for me as far as taking on more wedding projects and not feeling the stress of like, geez, I got to edit 3 wedding films, and they're all due within 2 months.
Right. Take me through the wedding. So do you just film the day of? Do you do a 3-day? Like, how many days to shoot it?
So for the most part, I shoot just the day of, and we're usually doing around 6 to 8 hours, depending on the package that they want. I've done one destination wedding film, which was in Cabo San Lucas, and that was a 2-day thing, which was a great experience. I shot the day before because they had this cool boat that they rented out for all their guests, so I documented that. And then the day of the wedding as well. And that's all I've been doing. That's like the most I've done as far as multiple days. But for the most part, it's just that same day, and that's pretty much it. 6 to 8 hours.
Okay. And then with your lenses are, especially inside, if the wedding's inside, it's another thing if it's outside, but inside it can be kind of dark, and especially at night. Do you have like an aperture of like a 1.4 lens so that?
Yes. So for that part, one of the great benefits about Sony's is they're really great with low light. And on top of having a prime lens, so we're shooting between 1.4 if it's a G Master, or a 1.8. So we usually have like an 85 millimeter 1.8 shooting the bride, I'm usually shooting on a 55 millimeter 1.8 film in the groom, and then the wide could be a zoom lens, which is just a 2.8 lens, which is still pretty good for low light. So I've never really had issues with low light. I've been in situations where the light is pretty damn low, but the cameras perform really great. I've never had an issue with noise, and my clients or my couples, they've never actually cried. I'm like, hey, this looks grainy or anything like that. So I feel like I'm doing something pretty good then if I don't hear nothing bad.
Right. And I think that type of wedding reel, I think is great because, I mean, I don't know who watches the whole thing, you know?
And that's why I like to specialize a wedding highlight film. That's like my thing. Like I want to do 4 to 5 to 6 minutes, keep it short and sweet. I always say less is more. You don't need that extra fluff. If you want a separate edit of the ceremony, I could provide that for you, but I don't want to add that to my highlight film. And I know I'm saying my because I'm filming it, but we all know what's going on. Like, hey, you chose me for a reason. You're not asking me to do something outside of, like, I guess my comfort, not even comfort zone, something that I just don't normally do. But if they want like toast and speeches, I will give them that separately.
Yeah, I love this approach. Kudos to you for, figuring that out and also doing what you want to do. I mean, otherwise they don't need to hire you. They can hire somebody else that does that.
Right. And trust me, it took years of experience and hardship to figure out what exactly I want to do with these wedding films. Before I remember the first film, I think I offered like 10 minutes and just thinking about that right now is like, yikes, like 10 minutes for like $1,000. I remember at the time I booked my first wedding and I believe I was in Peru during my travels. Someone just inquired and I thought I was the richest person on earth. I'm like, $1,000, let's go. Like first wedding film, let's get it. And then come to realize like, oh man, it's a lot of work for $1,000. But now like slowly increasing my rates and lowering my workload in the editing process. Cause I'm still doing the same amount of work on the field, but the editing is a lot more shorter.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So what about a fitness video? What's the approach and do you have a team for that or are you solo?
Yeah. So for the most part, it just depends on the budget, but I don't mind coughing up some of my budget that goes towards me to hire either a PA or a second shooter. So actually great question, because last week I just did a fitness video for a fitness clothing brand based out of LA, and he rented out the studio. He paid me my normal rate, which is amazing. And this was our second time shooting together. And I brought on my B shooter who actually shoots with me during the weddings. He's just my go-to guy. Shouts to Rafi, because he's just as creative as I am, if not probably more. And so I know that about him. He's good with lighting as well. And as far as creating something, like I have deep conversations with the producer or for this case, the owner of the company, who's a young kid too as well. And we do Zoom calls like this, and I do a mood board for them. And I'm like, hey, is this the vibe and vision you guys are going for? Because this is what I'm thinking. And most of the time they agree, like, dude, this is exactly what we want. Because they just know how to crunch numbers or design the clothes or whatever, but they don't know how to explain what they want in their actual visuals. So that's my job for me to figure out, to consume whatever they're telling me. And then from there, I try to make something visual. So I love using Milanote. I've been using it for a while now. And from there, I grab screen grabs from different inspirational videos that I've seen on YouTube or Vimeo, Instagram, etc. And I put it onto this mood board and I sent it to them like, hey, is this the vibe we're going for? And most of the times, like, this is exactly what we want. So we know we want that gritty, super contrasty look. And so I approach it like that. And then for stuff like that, last week I shot everything handheld, which was super fun shoot. It was very, very gritty. So right now we're on the post-production area right now. So we're currently editing this bad boy, and I'm going to send them the first draft, and they could see it themselves. And then from there, he's going to create a audio overlay and send it to me and finalize that bad boy.
Oh, that's great. And what about the fitness videos that are outside, like the running? I saw a couple of them on your website. Are you using drones? I mean, some of that was going pretty fast. You're not running with them.
Yes. Sometimes I do run with them. Sometimes I use my one wheel, which has been super clutch. That's something I need to start creating more BTS and show off with the things that I do. And then some of it is drone as well. So it just depends on the scenario of what we're doing. But for the most part, I try to use all my tools to make it look as crazy as possible and make it eye pleasing.
Do you typically do this all by yourself? Like some of the videos that you did, you're a solo shooter, or do you bring in?
So for the most part, I am a one-man band. I personally like that. But I do end up hiring either a second shooter slash PA. Again, just depends on the budget. And if it's something that I know I can handle by myself, I don't mind doing it. But if it's something that I'm learning more and more, it's better to just hire someone to help you out. Because there I could focus on the actual shooting where I don't have to focus on a ton of settings and props and lights and audio and all that good stuff. So yeah, I usually do hire someone from, like, for the last few months, I've definitely caught myself hiring assistants for sure. And it's just the way to go.
Yeah, I think so too, because also carrying all the gear.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
It's nice to have some help. So when you're going handheld, that's with the gimbal? Is that what
No,
you're...
for handheld, I just rig up my camera on a cage, and then from there I have my shotgun mic, I have my external monitor, and whatever accessories that I need, my side handles and whatnot. It just depends on the shoot. Like for sports, athletics, I want that handheld look where it's a little shaky. You don't want to do gimbal because it's a little too smooth, in my personal opinion. I've seen sports videos shot on gimbals and it looks pretty fine, but to me, my style, I want that gritty shake look. But if it's a wedding, I'm gonna throw a gimbal on that all day, because to me, for what I want and what the look I need it to be, it has to be on a gimbal where it's nice and smooth. I've seen wedding filmmakers, again, shoot handheld on a full wedding, and it's their style. But to me, it's like, I like to do gimbals for that, and it just depends on the shoot again.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And what's the external monitor that you use?
I use it's a pretty cheap one. It's called Fuel World. That's the brand. I don't know the exact model,
yeah,
but it's like $100, and I got that like 2 years ago, and it still works for me. I know there's a ton cool other gear out there, like the Adamus Ninja, that costs like $500-600, but I don't need all those features. Like, I know what I need. That's the one thing. It's like with YouTube, all these YouTubers are just pretty much pushing all these latest and greatest products, and these kids that don't even know much about filmmaking, they think, oh, I need the best gear to make the best product. But that's not true. It's like, you just really need to practice with what you have and just dedicate a lot of time, hours, weeks, years, and then from there you'll form your skills for sure.
I love that. I've heard that before, where it's like, it's not about the camera, it's about the shooter.
That's a fact. And of course, like, I do have one of the latest Sony cameras, the A7S III, which is a pretty penny, but I felt at the time that I outgrew my A7 III. So I knew I wanted 4K slow-mo. I knew I wanted 10-bit 422 color bit. I knew I wanted all those to enhance my craft. So there is a time where you need to upgrade your gear, but you shouldn't just upgrade it. Like, if you're just starting off, do not get yourself a $4,000 camera. Get yourself a $500 camera, $600 camera, whatever, and get yourself a nice lens. Like, don't get the latest and greatest, because believe me, you'll have that camera and it's just going to collect dust, and you're not going to be working on it as much as you want to. So just stick with what you got.
I love that advice. So now real estate videos, what I'm seeing is so cool about real estate videos is they're doing the drones through the house. Talk to me about real estate videos and the approach.
Yeah. Funny thing. I'm actually prepping all my gear right now for a real estate shoot tomorrow in San Diego. But yeah, for that specific thing you're talking about, those are definitely the FPV drones. I'm not there yet. I do own an FPV drone, and I'm currently practicing almost every day, at least 20 to 30 minutes on the simulator. I haven't yet flown it out, because that's a scary machine. You don't want to crash that, because they're super fast and it's easy to lose your bearings, and just something bad could really happen. So I'm just practicing a lot. But yeah, I've seen those many times on social media. They're really cool. I don't see myself ever doing that, but I mean, it's just a cool eye candy thing. But yeah, as far as real estate, yeah, those are pretty cool and fun and easy for me. Walk through videos, camera on a gimbal, and then I'm going to have the real estate agent talk about the property. So kind of like Architectural Digest. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where they're talking about the property, how many X amount of rooms, bathrooms, the key features of this home, blah, 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 blah. And of course, sprinkle in the drone, sprinkle in a cool B-roll sequence on top of the A-roll. So yeah.
With that, is it pretty much just keeping it in wide shots? You're not really getting close-ups?
You could change it up, but for the most part, I do have my wide lens, which is the Tamron 17 to 28. And the cool thing about Tamron lenses, they're A, pretty affordable, and B, they could go to aperture 2.8. So it works out really good. But I've seen other, I try to study as much as I can as far as whatever shoot that I'm going to do. I try to see other examples that I may not know about. And I have seen some shots that are shot in a tight focal length, like an 85 or something, kind of like a slider shot. And to me, that looks amazing. And I'm willing to try and experiment there too. So I might do that tomorrow, actually.
Yeah. And do you have a slider?
I do, but one of those cheap slider things that I got on Amazon for like $50. But for me, I will cheat that slider look by using the gimbal and using it on steady mode and just kind of do it like that.
Yeah.
I'm all about cheating. I like to say the word cheat, like, oh, we could cheat that in post, or we could cheat it by using blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I like to be creative with the shots.
Yeah. Well, that's what you got to do. I mean, make it work, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's all about problem solving. I'm sure you've had your cases of when you're producing, something unexpected happens and you got to figure it out on the fly.
Definitely. So you've done a lot of out of the country travel type videos. Can you tell me about one of your projects and what you do to prepare for a shoot like that? I mean, you already said some examples where you're traveling and then getting work. So you probably already have your gear, but what kind of gear do you need to take?
When I go abroad, I keep it very, very minimal. And even till today, so back in 2017, 2018, I still have the same exact backpack that I used when I first purchased it. It's the Encased Pro backpack. And to me, it works fine. I'm able to fit 2 full frame cameras, 3 lenses, and my drone on top of the big remote that it comes with, and my gimbal in that backpack. So I make it work. So when I travel, which is often, I just take that same backpack. I don't take my big, like I have another bag too for like other accessories, but for traveling, that's all I'm taking, what I just mentioned right now. It's nothing crazy, and a little dinky light that I'm using right now. That's pretty much it. It's nothing intense. Like, I only own 3 lenses. I only own 2, well, technically 3 cameras, but I take two body cameras in case one fails on me. And yeah, that's pretty much it. They, and then when I arrive, let's say to a resort or something like that, they just want eye candy stuff. They're not necessarily wanting some like story driven videos. At least I haven't produced that yet, but they just want eye candy. For the most part, is like cool drone shots to show the property, show the water, speed ramping style. So it's what I call eye candy videos, where there's no depth to it, but it's enough to grab someone's attention, which is all they want. They want someone to go to their website.
Well, and they probably don't want depth. They want the visuals.
Exactly. It's like, it just depends. It just depends on the situation. Some stories do need some sort of depth as far as like having some sort of audio or interview style, but some, for the most part, they want that nice fluff content.
Right. And what kind of mics do you use for audio?
So for the interviews, I will use either a boom using my shotgun mic. It's the Deity Pro shotgun mic, which is a really great microphone. Or I use a lavalier, which is the Rode. I use Rode lavaliers. I think they're called the Rode Wireless Goes. And I have the 2 version, which is, it's wireless. So that's all I use. I don't use nothing super fancy. It gets the job done for me. I tweak it in post and it sounds pretty damn good. I've never had anyone complain. Oh,
that's great. Yeah. And I've seen those mics. They're amazing for the price.
Exactly. They're like $100 or $200, something like that, which is like, in my opinion, is a steal. And good audio, like you could have amazing visuals, but if your audio is crappy, then it personally, it takes me out of the video, where you could afford to have crappy visuals, but as long as the audio is perfect, then I will still be in tune to the video.
Yeah. Again, note that audio bad, then nobody wants to watch it. Period.
Yep. Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
So let's talk about frame rate on a typical shoot. I know 60
per second,
right? For slow-mo, right? Or what do you use?
So it depends on the situation. For weddings, if I'm shooting A-roll, like the ceremony, and they're just talking, they're doing their vows, always 4K, 24 frames per second. I'm following the 180 rule as well. And then to compensate with the light, we use ND filters to have that natural motion blur. And for B-roll, I'm shooting at 60 frames per second for the most part. Sometimes I use 4K 30 as well, depending on like if they're getting dressed or whatnot, like the prepping part, I'll do 4K 30. But now with my A7S III, I can shoot 4K up to 120 frames per second. I rarely use 120. It depends on the scenario, but for the most part, I'm shooting 4K 60 for some sort of B-roll. And for like, say it's sports and athletic, if I want that natural motion blur, I will shoot in 23 frames per second or 24 frames, 23.976 frames per second. There was a case where the athlete has a medicine ball and he's slamming it to the floor. There, I shot that in 60 frames per second, because then that gives me the option to speed ramp it as he's going up. I'll slow it down and then just slams it. I speed it up again. So it depends on the scenario, but for the most part, 4K 24 or 4K 60.
I love the speed ramp and then the slow-mo. Yeah, you do. I mean, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's I do like that technique. I try to keep it simple. Like, I don't like the whole too many transitions, the zoom transition phase, like all that stuff. Like, I like it simple. I like the normal cut. It's just personal preference. And it's timeless too, because some of the sequences that you've seen in the past where like has the zoom transitions and the luma phase and all that, it to me aged really bad, and that was like 3 years ago. So the cut will never age bad. Like, that's why they use simple cuts on Hollywood films, because it is timeless. So I try to keep it that way.
Have there been any challenges on a shoot where you had to problem solve that you could think of?
I mean, I feel like in every shoot, there's always a scenario where something happens that didn't go as planned, and you just got to figure it out. The athletic shoot that I did last week, the one thing I could think of is, oh yeah, so we didn't have certain lights, or no, we didn't have a, we wanted to use a haze machine last second, and we couldn't find anything, and so I'm like, man, this is a really good idea to get this haze and shoot it up, blah, 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 blah. And then my buddy's like, hey, well, let me figure it out. Let me see if I could find something locally, if I can rent it out. It was a last second budget. I paid out of my pocket to get this look that I wanted. And he just went out there and like figured it out for me. And then he took him like 30, 45 minutes, and he grabbed it. He's like, hey, I got a spray can, haze can. So it worked out with that. Other stuff that could happen as far as weddings, for the most part, something always happens with weddings. A lot of it's beyond your control because it's so fast paced. You can't really say, hey guys, can you guys do the first kiss again? That does not happen on weddings. You got to be on your A game. And so I'm all about preparation, and I try to prep my shooters that I take with me, my two shooters. As far as stuff that happens is audio. There's always something going on with audio. And a lot of it is because the DJ or something like that, because you're connecting to their system. And if the DJ screws up, or for some reason the microphone is not working correctly, which happens often,
right,
your audio is going to suck too. But thank God I use the backups, which is my Rode Wireless Goes, and I lav the people that I need to lav. And then I have that as backup audio. So I've learned through other people's mistakes so I could avoid that on my films. So I'm all about learning from other people's mistakes. I go on YouTube videos and I see BTS videos of what they're filming and whatnot. And this challenge happens. I'm like, okay, mental note. If this happens, I got to do this, this, and this, so it doesn't happen to me.
I love it. So with the Rode Go mics, let me ask you this. I believe they record to the unit, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't go through like your Zoom.
No, it goes to the receiver that's attached to the camera. And the great thing about those, I mean, not trying to do free ads, but the great thing about those, you don't have to sync anything in post. It's all into your camera already. So you already have high quality audio synced into your visuals.
So is that just turned on the whole time?
No, because they will fall asleep if they're not being used, which has happened to me before. But again, thank God I had my recorder backed up to the DJ, so it happens in both ways. But no, if I know we're gonna do some vows, I'll make sure it's on. I'll make sure I'm on. I'm sure they're paired, and we're good to go. And I have headphones on my camera, so I make sure I monitor the audio.
Oh, that's great, and that makes it very simple in post. I mean,
it's super easy. It makes my life easier. It makes my editor's life a lot easy too.
That's great. So if someone wanted to get into this kind of work, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, I have plenty of people that send me DMs about, hey, I want to shadow you, blah, 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 blah. Or I want to, one thing that people say a lot is like, oh, I want to pick your brain. And to me, it's like, dude, like, I get it because I've been there before, but you need to provide some sort of value. You can't just say like, hey, I want to sit with you and get you coffee for 45 minutes. I'm a pretty busy person. I maximize my day to the max. I can't just afford to just sit with you for an hour for a coffee and you're getting all this value, which, trust me, I help a lot of people. I think I don't mind giving free game is what I call to the people that are looking for how to get into the space. but I will help them out if they, most of the time they, sorry, my cat's like annoying me right now. But for the most part, they ask like, hey, I don't mind shadowing you. I'll shoot some BTS, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, cool, we'll do that. But if I have something going on in the future and my guys are not available, then I will reach out to you. But as far as number one tip goes is if you have a camera on you, definitely study the game. And what I mean by that, like look at tutorials on YouTube. I learned everything on YouTube University. It's a thing. I love it. I didn't go to a college. I dropped out of school twice actually, from a community college. And I learned everything on YouTube, and it's all about trial and error. You got to go on the field and actually practice what you learn. Don't just consume all the knowledge. You have to exercise all the stuff that you've learned. And from there, you're going to get better and better and better.
I love that advice because when I was learning Adobe Premiere, I had a project. And as I was doing the project, I would get onto YouTube to go, how the hell do you do that? And then I'd have to like take a second and then I'd watch it and then I'd go in and then I'd do it. And then I'd go back and forth. And for like a week or two. And then I was kind of up and running.
Yeah.
There's so much knowledge and it's free.
Yeah. That's the beauty about 2022. Like, all the information's out there. Now it's up to you to figure out if you want to do it or not. Because before, people would use the crutches like, oh, I can't afford film school. I can't afford blah, 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 blah. I'm like, bro, right now, that excuse is a dud. Unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer,
right? Sure,
you do need to go to those proper universities to get those credentials. But if you want to be a videographer or a cinematographer or a photographer, everything's online right now. Like, there is zero excuse. That's why I feel like there's a lot of lazy people that you just use any excuse of why they can't figure out where they want to get to. I'm like, bro, like, the information's out there. Do you have it in you to actually go for it? You need to have that drive inside of you. Like, I used to think I was a lazy person when I was working in the hospital because I hated that job. And there was a reason why I wasn't driven, because I knew I was not passionate about that. And so for the longest, like, I thought I was just a lazy person. And then once I figure out what I was meant for, which is the videography space, man, I could do this in my sleep. Like, I'm like, all right, you know what? I am not lazy. I was just not passionate about working in a hospital. I am a lot passionate about cameras. I'm a lot passionate about video editing. That is my true passion. And from there, I could edit till like 4 a.m. and not blink. Like, it just depends on if you want to do it or not. You got to figure out if it's right for you. Because I know with Instagram and YouTube, it is the most trendy thing ever to see all these cool videos and whatnot. And it's easy to afford a drone nowadays. They're like $200 nowadays. So you want to get that eye fluff candy, but it'll fade away. Because I've seen it happen many times to colleagues where they're into it for a solid 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, a month later, they're not even doing it anymore, and they just spent $2,000 on camera gear.
Right. Yeah. Well, I like that. Yeah. You have to persevere. And just like you did, I mean, you created opportunities. I mean, you went and you traveled and then you created opportunities and made money or free stays.
Definitely. And my family, my friends, they all thought it was weird and trippy. Like, why are you doing this? You have such a good job. You have job security. And as we all know, the pandemic definitely showed us that there is no such thing as job security. Right. But yeah, you just got to take a leap of faith and trust your gut. That's the number one thing, is trust your gut. Seriously. I went with that. I'm like, well, if I leave and for some reason I fell, well, at least I could come back and I know I'm going to find a job somewhere. So what the heck? Let's just do this.
Right. There's always a job.
Yeah, there's always a job. Seriously.
Yeah.
Always a job. I mean, it doesn't matter if I'm going to work at Starbucks or I'm going to be at Burger King. There's always a job no matter what. So I knew I wasn't worried about that.
I just want to go back to something that you said about DMs when people come in and say, hey, you know, could I take you for coffee? What approach would you want people to do? Or suggest that if you're reaching out to someone that's doing what you want to do, how should you approach them?
So I'll give you this actual example that's happened to me. So, because I used to be that person 3 years ago, where someone that I look up to on Instagram, he was like, hey, I'm looking for a PA for a shoot that I'm in LA. And I told him like, hey dude, like, I'm offering to help you out. Like, I'll shoot BTS photos, videos. I'll be your production assistant, and I'll pick you up in the airport if you need me to. And then I just provided value for this person, because anyone could be like, hey, I'm down to do it. I went out of my way to explain, hey, this is what I could do, these options. And he ended up hiring me. Like, well, at first he ended up picking me out of his hundreds of DMs. And so I didn't expect to get paid. I didn't even talk about money, because I knew being connected with this person, he's going to teach me a lot. about the business, about production, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when I met up with him, I even asked him like, hey, dude, like, why did you choose me out of everyone else? And he's like, honestly, man, like, you actually provided value by telling me that you could do A, B, C, and D, where other people would just be like, choose me, like, without saying anything else. And so, and it helped out that you said that you picked me up from the airport. And so I'm like, dude, that's awesome, man. And then I learned a lot from that shoot, and he ended up paying me pretty damn good. Like, I did not expect that. So, and now we have that good connection, him and I. We worked together a few times, and he's taught me so much about the business, and he's taught me about how to get uncomfortable asking for these crazy numbers. And at first I'm like, oh man, that sounds pretty insane to ask for $4,000 for a 60-second video shoot. And then the more I got used to it, the more comfortable I got. And now I'm getting those deals like $4,000 to $5,000, $6,000 for a simple video, which is like nuts. And if it wasn't for him, I would have never learned that.
Well, and also let's not minimize the value that they get in you.
Right. True.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's a great point to put out there, is that you have to add value to others. This isn't about you.
Yes. So the one last tip I would say, if you're reaching out, look at their Instagram, look at their portfolio, look at their website, and find something that they may want that they don't have. So with this guy, he didn't have much BTS. So I said, hey, dude, I noticed you don't have BTS. I could do that for you. And he was like, you know what? I never thought about it like that. That is pretty good value that I could capitalize on. So yeah, let's do that. And kind of went like that. So look at their quote unquote flaws as something that you could provide for them that they don't know they may not have.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah. So you got to think, you got to think outside the box, right, for sure.
Yeah. To be noticed.
Exactly. For sure.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was great.
Thank you so much, Sam. This was super fun. I'm excited to listen to this again.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to get out there and make a film. Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram at Tammy Magaro. Until we meet again, what's your story?